Hello, it's Leaf. Today I'm doing a character creation video because, a bit because it was requested, but also because there's this tricky thing about how colors work in Sandrock's character creation, especially blush, and I want to talk about that, and hopefully it can be helpful or useful in some way to someone. So, I always make my character basically the same way. I'm used to that face by now, so I'm just gonna quickly customize it the way I usually do, because it's not the main point of this video. So, I always use the first preset. There are others and there are new ones, but this one is the most neutral, I guess. I usually reduce the face roundness ever so slightly. And I always shorten the chin a bit. Let's get the hair out of the way. We're gonna change it later. Okay, now we can see the entire face. So now I'm gonna go to ears and drag everything to the left. This is something I always do. Now, eyebrows. I am lowering the eyebrows. They go all the way down. And let's make the eyebrow shape more arched, more angled actually. And let's add some length. Okay, so that's it. Now for the eyes. The type is entirely up to you. So is the color actually, so this is completely not important. That's how I do it. Okay. I do, however, make the pupils smaller for a slightly more natural look. As for the shape, I move the slider to the right to make the upper eyelid a bit less round, if that makes sense. Then, I make the eyes as small as possible. Oh my god. And with eye rotation, I always make them slightly more upturned. But I also make the eyes as wide as possible to get that almond shape. Now let's bring them closer together. And let's move them upwards just a tiny bit. Okay, and now let's immediately go to eyeshadow. And I always select that winged eyeliner and I make it quite dark. The outer part, the wing, that is, I make as dark as possible. And this is the darkest we can get. Technically it's black, but it doesn't look black. It's in fact, this is the only time when I go for pure jet black color in this game. But we're gonna get back to this later. For now, let's deal with the nose. So I'm making it a bit shorter from the side, looking from the side, but that's completely optional. Now let's make it a bit wider and let's move it downwards. Now for the mouth. The size goes all the way to the left. And I also move the entire mouth downwards. You know what? I could tweak the nose a bit more. Technically, all of this is supposed to make the face look a bit less childish, but does it really? I don't know. I just like the results, so. Okay, now for the lipstick. I always go for the middle one. It's not too small, not too big, and it kind of cancels out the smirk a bit. Actually, let me change the color at this point because the original is a bit too bright. And this is a nice, relatively neutral tone. It looks quite dark with this skin tone, but we're about to change it right now. I mean, it works well as a lip color, but I usually go for the natural lips, so obviously I'm gonna tweak that after I change the skin tone. So initially, she's got that nice custom skin shade. Custom in a sense that, yeah, it is a preset, but it's not among those kind of swatches that we can select from. So once we change it, we need to completely reset the skin tone to get back to this original one. But when I make my characters, I almost always use the second one, and I go from there. So today I'm making a character with a somewhat darker skin tone. And you can see this shade is mainly concentrated around the nose, eyes, inside the ears, and on the sides of the face. And basically it's shading. I just make it slightly more on the reddish side, and that's it. The secondary color takes care basically of everything else. But one thing to remember, the skin tone always looks a bit lighter in the game, especially in the sun. It always looks slightly lighter than in the character creation. It's just how the lighting works in this game. Okay, so this is the skin tone. Nothing very difficult. Let's move to the lipstick. Actually, it looks okay here. Besides, it's a lipstick. It can be any color. Personally, I want a more natural and neutral lip, so I'm going to bring the color a bit closer to her skin tone. And to do this, I'm just going to move this a bit more towards yellow on the color spectrum, and that's it. At least when it comes to this part of the mouth, and this is just the line between the lips. So again, it's basically shading. Now, the second color affects the main body of the mouth. And here I'm going to make it a bit more yellow, and I'm also going to play with the saturation a bit. So I do suspect it might turn out a bit too warm. And the good thing is that you can always tweak it later. Okay, but there's something more tricky than the lip color, and it's the damn blush. Depending on the effect you want, it can be really time-consuming and difficult. So the easiest option is not to use it at all, but I am way more adventurous than that. Okay. The blush shape I always use is this one, because why would I make things easier for myself? Okay, so the shape itself consists of two parts that can be colored separately. There's the outer part that forms basically a ring and looks like a tick bite gone wrong. And there's the inner part. I want most of the color to be visible only in the inner part, and I'll use the outer part, that ring, to diffuse it. So, I'm changing the colors to the same shade I used for the initial color of the lipstick. This kind of nice neutral pinkish shade. And it's already not bad actually, but it does look a bit dull and a bit dark, especially in the outer part, in the outer ring. Even more so when we compare it to the bare skin, to the no blush version. See how much lighter the skin becomes when we remove it? Okay. I want subtle color. What I don't want is that illusion of shadow. And I don't want it to be this big. So, to use the outer part as a blending tool, we need to make that part blend in with the skin color the best we can. And the way to do it is to play with colors and then compare it to the bare skin, to the no blush version. So we're basically tweaking it and comparing it to the bare skin. The thing is that there is no opacity slider in this game. There is some kind of built-in dispersion of color, the edges are diffused and more see-through than the center, but we have no control over it. So the only way to make stuff seem more sheer is to make it closer in shade to the general skin color, just as I did with the lips. I have no idea if that makes any sense to you. I can only hope. So what I'm trying to do here is basically make the entire outer circle of the blush disappear, or almost disappear. Of course, I'm completely ignoring the inner part of the blush. I'm just looking at the outer part. The pink part, I don't care about it. And I'll stop when I decide that the only thing that changes between the blush and no blush version is that pink inner part. Okay, so I think that's enough for now. Now we're going to be dealing with this part, the inner part of the blush preset. It already looks okay and much more subtle than initially, but I want something even more subtle. I'm also going to make it more similar to her skin tone. So I'm going to move the slider more towards yellow. Now, when it comes to brightness, if we make it too bright, it's going to glow like hot metal. If we make it too dark, it's gonna look like dirt. So I am trying to find a spot where it looks just right. And this spot can be different depending on the effect you want, obviously. Yeah, just remember that in the game it's gonna look brighter and more saturated. So yeah, I'm just going back and forth with the sliders, and I'm occasionally comparing with the clean face. Okay, I think that's the effect I want, more or less. That should be fine. It's very subtle, but that's what I wanted, okay? It's gonna be brighter in the game, especially in the sun. Okay, so now let's move to the hair. The hairstyle is entirely up to you. I usually use this one, the ponytail, and recently the bangs. What we're gonna be discussing now, however, is, once again, color. So, this default color, or rather color combo, is supposed to be black, but actually it's mostly grey, and it looks even more grey now that my character's skin is darker. And I actually want black hair for this character, or at least very dark. But the thing is that in my time at Sandrock, the color black, pure jet black, is never used. Let me show you something. The pupils, they look pretty good, right? There's something reflected in them, but the default color of the pupil is nowhere near black. It's actually this kind of muddy brown. When we change it to black, it becomes so dark that even the reflections disappear. And it basically looks like two black holes in her face. So even characters with what we perceive as black hair, like Chi or Owen or Unsure, actually have grey hair, grey, bluish, purplish, brownish, anything but pure black. Okay, so even though I can physically make my hair completely black, I don't do it. No matter how tempted I am to just make at least the base color completely black, I try to remember that even though it looks okay here, it will really stand out in the game. Of course, if you don't mind that, then go for it. But personally, I like my character to look like a part of the world she inhabits, so I always stop myself before going overboard. Plus, again, in the game, the hair color will look more saturated and deeper. Every color does. So, what I usually do is I make the base color kind of brown. I just keep the default and move the tone slider to red. I add some saturation, and we can make it just a tiny bit darker. A tiny bit. And then let's keep the bluish highlight because I actually like the contrast. And I just make it slightly darker, and I add a tiny bit of saturation. And that's it. Okay, maybe let's make the basic color a bit more saturated. And that's it. Okay, let's see what we created. Alright, so I see that the blush is subtle but visible. The skin does seem a bit lighter than during character creation. But that's because of the lighting, that's because of the sun. The hair color seems dark enough, I think. I know it's not black, but my brain can easily interpret it as black. The lipstick is a bit more warm and a bit more peachy in tone than I wanted. But yeah, I should have expected that. Actually, I did mention this, I think. Okay, so that's it. This is more or less how I created the character for my current Sandrock Let's Play series. As you can see, the blush is probably way more work than it's worth. But yeah, that's how I do it. Right, so that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you in the next one. Take care.